What's up, everybody? It's been a way too long of a time. I'm back. I'm here with Carter. We're actually jumping back on his motor. I should probably explain. Like I said, I've been gone for about a month. I've actually been doing a lot of work in that month.
You travel the world.
I didn't travel the world, but I've been doing work, and me and Carter have been working on his whole project motor right here. We've done some work, and I keep forgetting my memory card, so that's why there's been no footage. I finally remembered to bring the memory card. We actually ran into some issues working on his motor, which I'll explain. It's actually some questions you guys had that you've asked me when I was doing my full rebuild. So I'm going to cover what you can do in those instances if you run into some of these issues. And we're just going to be rebuilding his short block. Well, we're going to see if we can do the long block, the whole thing today. I got new bearings, new rings, all that same procedures is all in the K20, K24 rebuild kit. So I'm not going to cover everything in full detail. So I'm just going to, I forgot the tripod again. Find somewhere to put you guys. I don't know. I'm going to sit you guys down. We're just going to kind of speed through this, and the stuff I want to cover, we'll cover. So with the engine on the stand right now, we just put the bearings in. What Carter's doing right now, he's miking up the crank. So with miking up the crank, we're going to get our numbers to zero out our bore gauge so we can find our oil clearance, our main oil clearances on the main bearings. Now, this is the second time we're doing this. So one question I remember you guys were asking me is, what if you put your bearings in, your clearances are not where you want to be? There's two things you can do. You can just get a completely different set of bearings, the thickness difference of what you think you might need, or you can kind of split bearing shells. So when I mean split bearing shells, you can get, if you're using standard bearings, you use one half of the bearing, standard, and then the other half will be a different thickness bearing. So in our case, I believe we were reading 3/1000 of oil clearance when we checked this last time. That's a little too much from what I like and what I know works. So what I told Carter to do was to get a .025 bearing.
More money.
Okay, anyway, you have to spend the money, Carter. This is the process. You need me to hold that?
I mean, I was hoping. I thought it was a team effort.
Okay. So anyway, what he had to do was get a different size thickness bearing. I'll explain it after we finish this. It was a .025. What that equivalates to is another thousandths less of clearance. So hopefully it's bringing us within the 2/1000 clearance. Oil clearance is what I like, 2 to 2.5. So if it's a little tighter than that, what we'll do is we're going to split it. We're going to use a .025 bearing with a standard bearing to get us probably to 2.5, and we'll be good. Let me go hold this so you can mic this, and we'll see what we get. After checking the clearances of our main bearings with the tighter 025 main bearings, we're getting about a thou and a half, a little bit too tight. So this is the prime example. What we're going to do now, we're going to take this, take the bottom girdle off. We're going to just take half of the bearings. So at the top, we're going to take the bearings off of probably this piece right here. Just take them off there. We're going to put the standard bearings on that, retorque everything down, and we should be right where we want to be. Here's part numbers for the 025s. So that's your part number for the bearings. If you need to be if you need less clearance, so if let's say you're like 3.5, and you want to be in the 2.5.
Been there before.
Exactly. So you need a thousandths less, you go to the 025. And the other part number of the standard bearings, Carter, where's your standard bearings?
In the parts bin.
Okay, in the parts bin. Again, you guys have seen this whole process before. We're doing all this. Again, I always use a shop manual for torque specs and everything. There's this crank, we're miking that out, and here is the standard. This is the part number for standard size bearings. Most of the time these worked in my block. I didn't have to split any. Something that I was looking into that I think might be happening is because the crank was micro polished. This is a used block he bought. We don't really know the condition of it. Could be one of those instances where when it was micro polished, we took just maybe half a thousandths off of the journal, and the actual seating of where the crank goes inside the block might have lost some material over time as well. So it could have just contributed to making everything a little looser, which is why we're gonna have to split bearings right now.
Here.
I'm gonna show them exactly what's going on.
Are we recording?
Yeah, we're live.
So we live.
We live. All right, so we just split the bearings. We got the standards on the top, the 025 on the bottom. We have this already set for the number 2 journal, so we're gonna go to the number 2. We already checked it, but I just wanna show you guys exactly where we're at. We're seeing 2, 2, 1. Seeing about 2, 2 maybe. That's perfect. It looks like they're all gonna work out. We're gonna double check all the 5 of them. If they're all good, Carter can relax. He can take a breather because the right clearances are there. So that's what we're gonna do.
All right, but how you turn this off? Oh, this is off button.
All right, back from a lunch break. We're doing the rings now. Another question that was asked. Let's say you got rings out of the pack and the ring gaps are already too big than what your predetermined gap was supposed to be. What do you do? So that's what happened with us. I think I wanted to set the top ring on this motor because it's the stock K20 17 and the second ring was going to be 19 thousandths. The second ring out of the box was like 28 thousandths, way too big. It was the right size. It was an 86 mil ring. It just wasn't the right size. So what we ended up doing, we went up a size bigger. So Carter ordered a set of 86.5 millimeter rings. So when we went to put them in, they don't even fit in the cylinders. Basically, we're file fitting them now. So we filed it until we could fit it into the cylinders with no gap. So once we finally got them flush with no gap, that's when I started to make the new gap on what we needed to make. I did all the top ones, now I'm doing the second ones. Once we do the second ones, we're gonna assemble everything, put the crank in, seal all that up, then we're gonna drop pistons in, and we might leave it at that because we have some plans to do later on, so we're running out of time. So that's where we're at right now. We're just in case you have rings that they're way too big, right out of the box, just go a 1/2 mil size up on the next size and file fit them to make sure they fit. I thought of while I'm doing all this, I just figured out the gap on the second ring. If you're gapping second rings, they file a lot easier than the top one, so just be very mindful that when you're doing the top ring, you're gonna keep filing and filing and filing until where you get to where you need to be, because it's made out of a harder material. Second ring files a lot easier, so just be mindful of that when you file in the second run. But I know when I was showing you guys in my build series, the way we were squaring up the rings was we'd use the piston that was the same size as the cylinder and do that whole method. Well, I kind of got tired of doing that, and I bought a ring squaring tool, and I want to show you guys exactly how it works because it works great. I wish I would have had it when we did mine, but this is how it works. So this is the tool. It's all you do is adjust it to the size of your cylinder. So if I take this ring out right now, put this to the side, so I'll just put it in here. I'll side one end up, and then I'll do this side just to get it to the size of my bore, lock it up. So I'll put this to the side, then I'll grab my ring, put it in there. We'll start at the top, and all we do, slide this, spin it a little bit just to make sure the ring is fully seated all around. And now as you guys can see, our ring is seated inside, square, flat, and we can get a proper measurement of the gap. So great tool, definitely get it. This I got it from Summit. Here you go. I'll leave the link down below. All right, so we got everything finally torqued down on the crank. I'm gonna let Carter spin this crank by hand so you can feel how smooth it should be once we got all our right clearances.
You know, we didn't do that before we put the camera on, right? So if it's wrong,
do it. I'm telling you, it's gonna look how smooth it's gonna be.
Oh, that's butter right there.
That's once you get your right clearances, dude. That thing spins like butter. That's how it is. So everything is all good. It's all assembly lubed. Everything's all torqued down. I mean, you can see it. It doesn't take much. Barely. All you got to do it like that and get a couple rotations out of it. Nice free spinning motor. Now we're going to. All of our rings are gapped, so I always have everything always laid out. We're gonna put the rings on the pistons. Put the rod bearings onto the rods, and we're gonna torque everything down and get all of this installed. One quick thing before we go to the pistons, I've mentioned this briefly before. We're doing the crankshaft end play, making sure that's all good. So with new thrust washers, you should be 4 thousandths, like minimum, maybe 3. That's even okay. Ours is like 4 thousandths on the money right there, and see this is just how I usually set it up. A magnetic base would be quicker. Me and Carter spent about 5 minutes just trying to get this to not move around too much. So we got it. I just put the crank bolt on there and I zero it out on that. Just grab a flathead screwdriver, pry it back and forth, and see where your movement is. Okay. I've talked about this before. I just be content. So I'm just showing you guys everything we're doing. Now we're gonna do everything on the pistons and throw it in. So that's definitely coming next. Yeah. All right, so we just kind of ran into another hiccup. So basically what's going on now at this point is Carter's cleaning the block. He's preparing it to put the new pistons in, and I was getting the pistons and the rings ready to go. I didn't know this. So he's using OEM. This is a complete OEM rebuild, like I've explained in the first video of this whole series. So we're using the OEM RSX pistons. Aftermarket piston ring packs, the oil control ring doesn't work on an OEM piston. I didn't know that. I just found that out now. There's a huge size difference, and so we don't have oil control rings to fit on the piston. I'll show you. So these are, this is our aftermarket ring pack, and as you can see, this is the one that I'm trying to fit. It's hard to focus on this little thing, but this is what it is, right? So I have a box of stock pistons, but these are TSX pistons. So I grabbed a TSX one to see, and I mean, I don't know if you can. All right. You can see the size difference between an aftermarket one and an OEM one. It's a big difference. So I tried to put the TSX oil control rings onto the RSX piston. It fits, but the only problem is they can't contract. They can't squeeze enough to fit into the bore. So the piston won't go in. So at this point we're kind of stuck because they don't really sell Honda doesn't really just sell those rings separate. You have to buy a whole ring pack, and that'd be a complete waste of money because we already have the 2 top rings gapped to what we need. Those fit. We just need the bottom oil control ones. So I think what I suggested to him, just to hit up the machine shop, see if he has any spares laying around for a K20. If he doesn't have that, we'll have to maybe find some used pair of pistons from somebody and take the rings off of those. But that's where we're at. The crank is in. All the bearings are sized up. We just can't put our pistons and rod bearings in, so we're gonna leave it at that. I usually don't like to leave videos like this, but we're just being real, and this is.
If you guys have a set of oil,
this is what happens. Yeah, you know what? Why not, right? Because this will go up within like a day or two. If anybody has a set of 86 millimeter RSX Type S piston oil control rings, so that would be the squiggly one and the top and bottom ones to hold it in the piston. Let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram, DC5 Surge, or leave a comment on this video. This is for Carter. Let's hook him up. Give me a price, or if you want to ship them to me, whatever, ship them to me. That'd be great. Because Carter's got a lot of money invested into this already. So let me know. But I don't like
going to college now.
Yeah, Carter's not going to college, so this is college fun. So So let me know, definitely. And like I said, I don't like leaving videos like this, but this is the reality of building motors. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In my case, I kind of got in a perfect world scenario. All the stuff I had just happened to work. And we're just trial and error with this one, basically. But if you just take that, if you have aftermarket ring set, they only go on aftermarket pistons. They're not going to go on OEM pistons. So learn that from me. That's a mistake I'm learning from. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. The next one will be probably we're gonna put his head together just to keep going with the whole process.
Shout out to the trans.
The trans, yeah, the trans. We actually, I'll give you a quick look at that. So this is the trans. Carter painted the casing. It's actually empty right now. What we actually did was replace the whole counter shaft with what was it? M Factory?
Gear X.
Oh, Gear X. We did a Gear X counter shaft with a Gear X final drive, right? So we did that whole thing. We tore the whole trans apart. I wanted to film it, and it was one of the days I didn't have my memory card. And we were fighting trying to find bearings because he went with a different final drive ratio, which meant the counter shaft was a different size, and the bearing that we had didn't fit with that counter shaft. So again, that was a whole bunch of things we were going through. So that's something else we're dealing with. That'll have to get done another week. So the next video, we'll see what we're catching up on if we don't get these rings within the next week. So hopefully somebody can really hook us up, and if they have a set of rings, let me know. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Stay motivated and keep making the streets louder.